We are really excited to welcome Mr. Daniels here to Wake Hall. Welcome him back to Wake Hall after many years. Thank you all, and we can get started now.
Thanks, and given the honesty of the group, I'm going to just stand here within an easy spitball range. I'm very grateful to Rick Lyle for this invitation. We recently done Rachel Hobowitz, I guess, parallel contemporaries also the invitation custodians for free speech come out also very grateful. And this university want to hear two speeches from me, and I'm circulating give to also but based all involved. Very nice to see all of us in my school or theater. And I think that tonight has been possibly exception. You are sure to use your time and things to better practice. Tonight may not let me out the member up, but I'm sure you are. Sure, this we call it as one of too few things that I've been to so much me. During my times is as which I've read it there. So wait. The part point is that I think anybody have
can't get a recording.
Yeah, because our point used to say that the audience was intelligent, inquisitive, drunk. There was like 3 to 4 here today, at least. By the way, congratulations to organize
It's good. I help.
decade of carrying no same.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Thank you for speaking.
Through to some, by the way, faculty generally were susceptible to it, to Stevenson.
That's right.
As I get to what I'm sure will be the more useful part for you to stay with programming, any questions you might ask. I'll do what I don't intend to talk about, unless you ask, because I already told you there's a lot to say. It's a very tumultuous time out. Langston has a few other schools that are sitting on bulletproof violence, given to what's going on. Progressive fighter, it's a very good, big turn on much of it self-inflict. I didn't really talk about partisan politics, although I spent some time in it before and after business years, which were mentioned, but which is the longest stretch of my working life. But when I took the job at Purdue University, that day, so at 6 months to go, the previous job, I assembled what I sometimes call my valve political cell was and it just wouldn't have been. I thought would not be appropriate, especially at Salt Lake University, at getting involved at anything Wilton partisan, and I have it to this day. Even though I now laid out those dudes. Now, what I thought I'd spend some time talking about talent has to do with the state of the country and the aspects which I can no longer do as much as I would like to. That we were headed for a very difficult, possibly cataclysmic national life. And I don't like coming to this conclusion. I have my disposition, my training, about endeavors I've been involved in. It's the only operating philosophy, and I would make sense. And I think that's still the case in much of life. We used to have an athletic coach used to say, if you say you can or you can't, you're right. And so I've always tried to approach assignments with an angry attitude, and I always kind of still do. However, it is harder and harder for me to persuade myself that as a nation, as a polity, as a collective, as self-governing people, we are to not solve our problems without a very difficult changes. Really possible that we can become, as societies do, so calcified, so encumbered, special interests of all kinds, is to always and every occurrence. make it their business to freeze the status quo, which is in front of them. That we have not shown a capacity to make long-term decisions in the interest of the future, in the interest of young people. And that's disappointing, but I can't disregard the evidence that might be the case. Like 11, 12 years ago, I named with, and it was full of optimism, although I cautioned that I couldn't feel it. All of this was based on faith. And they had really two basic things. One was an appeal to people to choose public options, public policies that empower individuals and that recognize their right to make decisions for themselves about their health care, about where their children are educated, about the death with basic fundamental choices of how, as with this, to do otherwise. Two was that many of what I term benevolent betters would do, which is to try to regulate, govern, dictate their decisions. All of it was to me was that he's disrespecting of the person that made the level of it. And his clear souls are just not smart enough. They can go. They're simply can't is allowed to make choices they might base it on. So I talked about that. We need to avoid what some call the epistocracy. He was blinded by the knowledge or the sooner. So like many of those, we spend more time talking about the need to make all that decisions as a self-governing country. The time we went up, specifically about the tests we were running out. And this is 12 years ago. And then as we have more often in military conquest, the ruin of past civilizations, particularly at a time we did Cuba, not for investment in your future, up to some point that could be defensive, but in borrowing money and spending on current consumption. People my age, between our ages, spending it on themselves. I also talked, and you could see it even there, of course, now more versions about the poisonous polarization of our society, and there was an appeal to compete for office and to defeat the public decisions in a way I think that had an assessment for that to me, which was to forswear personal attacks, vilification, demonization of others, and so forth. So, chapter 2 of that book, and I had a wrestling match with the publishers about this. They didn't want it. I said, look, it's not, I wasn't pretentious, not great. It didn't affect to be a great historian. I just thought the reader should honor for a few days the fragility of democracies. So I went back, they made mention of many of the experiments in self-government that finally worked out well. And pointed out that from Plato to Nietzsche, he's made a big to stand on himself, them fledgling American experiment democracy like modesty. The skepticism, that was the title of it. Check, the skeptics. We say, yeah, cute idea, that people would be free, no kings, no tyrants, let them make their own decision. Sooner or later, they'll fall prey to demagogues, they'll spend money they don't have. One way or another, I talked about what we call the entitlements programs, even then, suing the budget, now destined to be so much bigger way. And trying to argue that, look, we can work this out. So if people do not knowingly plunder their children, they don't realize that's what we're doing. They can be appealed to plan for the future and abstain from spending and from practices today that penalize or amortize that future. I couldn't write that like that. despite my training, my disposition, and great experiences I've had, making things happen by assuming the best of people, assuming optimistic point of view. That book to me, I'm afraid, right now, basically, is very naive, right? It's telling very grudging and very reluctant to the conclusion that there's a very good chance, maybe a better and even chance, that within the next few years, there will be some sort of very reaching and set of changes in our country. And I thought about all these comments well before the advance of recent days, which could bring, just hopefully not, could bring the real crisis that to us, to the whole world, very suddenly. So if that happens, I'm going to bring you a little evidence of people wiser than I who argue that it's likely. And if it does, then there will be a critical, historically important role for younger people with great talent, of whom inevitably you and or many of your classmates here will be part as the elites on whom the societal success or failure winds up. And so let me just, I'll try to be really brief about these. I've really been studying, like, in the book picked up for the past several months. Is forecasting some kind of very, very cataclysmic change. The diagnoses differ. Sometimes they overlap. That is to say, what's going to cause this? But what's eerie to me is how similar the time frame seemed to be. Early 30s, late 20s, sometime in the next decade or so. So who are some of these people really saying? So a guy named James Pearson wrote a book called Shattered Consensus. This is a political assessment. He looks back at history and says it's unusual that every several decades we have a big change in our political equation. The parties of the day, politics of the day, just no longer satisfy people. You have a big revolution. He says he expects the Fourth American Revolution. He sees it 1800 when essentially the Federalists were run out. 1860 when we got the biggest crisis in American history. And the 1930s, Depression. He sees a consensus, a new consensus emerging from such a set of circumstances and lasting for maybe more than a half a century. Finally, it running out. He thinks the post-war consensus basically that government is in the position to deliver economic growth, and that American role to, as not police the world, at least maintain order and stability. He thinks that consensus is collapsing. With it will have a big change of some kind. Part as Max and I were talking about, is this the time a third party or some new movement finally emerges? So that happen often. So keep this big growth couldn't happen. We're standing at Wig Falls. Right? They went away. Some people see this coming from economics. A lot of these, Mark B. Wolf, editor of The Economist magazine, he's very concerned. His book, The Crisis of Democratic Capitalism, is a big, he's a big believer in that. He says, the one coming in the book, democracy cannot survive, come without an active economy. He thinks that today's market economy is failing time. To kind of up your mobility, some sense of quality that it has in the past. See, it advocates all sorts of interesting things, a carbon tax, an end to stock buybacks, but limitation of horizontal murders, point that 100% expense. And what I really like, these figures, I think is it with figures, not only compulsory voting, but he also thinks young people more votes, right? Depending on your age, it's 3 for you, and teen. Or giving the parents of children additional votes. So maybe too cute an idea, but you see what he's getting, right? Debt. My preoccupation and that of many people, whatever the risks of these other things, there's no speculation about we're not going to be able to pay to that, the promises that have been made in what we call the safety net programs. Just do the arithmetic. It's other thing. When I wrote the book, you could make the case. 12 years ago, you could make the case. If we got started with some modest changes, we could certainly protect the most vulnerable people, and we could probably make it through. Well, we didn't get started. And a few years after that, you could say, well, if we got started now, we did probably protect the very most vulnerable with some big adjustments for everybody else. And it's even hard to make that case. So people looking at that, and by the way, it's not just government debts. It is not just federal debt, state and local debts. New Jersey is number 2 or 3 in the nation in most indebtedness per capita. But then there's corporate debt, and it leads people, or financier Ray Dalio has just written a book. He sees a big cycle of success coming to an end. A guy who's sort of one of his acolytes, Steve Malden, we're going to put it, sees a great reset when these debts simply cannot be paid. People level all over the world. And he says, when the economy comes crashing down in our years, there's a appealing measure for you. And one thing, there's a school of thought, the most prominent current proponent guy, Neil Howe, he sees this in social terms. With the generations, he traces it back to the Greeks, finds with some persuasion that based on admitting the generation whose lead aside is largely formed by the experiences they have, they see and live through when they're young. And that we are coming into the end of a 4th generation, he calls it a sequel, where big changes have always happened. He talks about things in the American public is collapsing, like those to a quote, great day of history, come out with a quote, new collective identity. I've had for a long time some fairly, I guess you'd say, harsh thoughts about my generation. Dad usually, but I gave a speech about the university, commencement speech at Butler University in Minneapolis about 15 years ago now. And I had some fun with it, but that's what I chose for the theme. I talked to the baby boom generation, and how self-absorbed, solipsistic, is often selfish. We think, but I said at one point, it's been a blast, good luck cleaning up after this thing. When the speech was over, I figured I got my point across when the faculty stared daggers at me, at the students gave a standing ovation. I took that down as a solid. I said that day, and I leave even more so now, nobody is going to label our person, as Tom Brokaw famously labeled the Depression in World War II, greatest generation. It's not a disgrace how many greatest in there be. And not everyone will be. Howe says you can't. It says, generation like ours comes from age in a peaceful time, too peaceful time, you prosperous time, contemplating time. So of course they think that's the way the world is. And they tend to overindulge and not take care of the garden, so to speak. He calls at first generation after a crisis, wisdom. The prophet generation, he calls yours, that right. The baby I tell me today is to the hero generation, to whom it focus to pick up the pieces after some sort of a crash, economic, political, military, whichever of the delay happens. And to reshape something, which may be very, very different. It may be a society with structures and institutions, values, norms that are very, very different than what that for. And then people think, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. A generation later, they think it's always the way it is. See, when it's getting in. Paradoxically, some of these people are optimistic. You know, or all in the great research, and I said, see, that's what nothing three was through thousands of people who's around volume. A lot of it's about the economic partnership. So, Hal thinks that somehow will come through because they just he says that the leaders at the time will shape a new era of engagement. People are not so individualist, not too separate for each other. Sense of community is stronger. Well, it clearly happens after war. Look at Israel right now. Now everything's here. And to all the differences they've been, they are totally united without, in their case, defense. Could have been another sort of motivator that brought them together. But that's what he's talking about. And guys, I thought it was good. Always stuck with me. And academic review schools pointed out very interestingly that the societies, areas, regions, countries, sometimes parts of country, which have grown most quickly, flourished the most, are those coming out of a disaster. Could be a man-made disaster like a war, could be a natural disaster. But because these encrusted special interests that have been limiting folks, that have been advantaging parts of society versus other parts of society, swept away. Think China or Japan after World War II. Two big examples. So it could be something like that. The greatest cyclical, most prominent cyclical thinker that we've known anytime recently was the historian Arnold Toynbee. He looked at 26 societies that flourished and then didn't, and tried to see what patterns were there. Like how a little bit too formulaic, maybe he's doing well as like a curse, but there's a certain basic logic he believes in talking about. And basically what he says is, no matter how successful a civilization, countries, nation, collection be raised by Spain, UK, on and on. Eventually there comes a huge challenge. And the question is how leaders of the day respond to that challenge. Now he says that when a civilization begins to lose creative power through which in its period of growth it had inspired voluntary allegiance in the hearts of people. It's not hard to see right now some evidence that our system is losing allegiance in the hearts of the people. It says in one other place that the direction is that failure of creative power of the minority, created minority, term I'm going to come back to here as we wrap up, leads to a withdrawal of militants who leads rest of society saying, I want to be like that. That's the right way to think. That's the right way to behave. Those are the right answers. And then to the loss of social unity in society as a whole, and that brings on the great challenge, assuming some foreign invasion or some exogenous external back it has. So, that brings me to the students that here, because to lease is a term that has taken on George, at least temporarily, George's connotations in our thinking. It used to mean excellence, best, goat. But for the moment, and this probably reflects, like I let Ulysses, the point we used to talk about, it's not thought of it to be good. Wolf points out, like it or not, when you think it's a charm of praise or charm of disapproval, He wrote, complex society without elites is inconceivable. And that's so, let me just say that if we can hope that this is like this, for any of these reasons, some combination, you're about to live in the next decade or so through one of these very occasional, but very real, could say sooner or later, inevitable crunches, crashes, prices, passions. Then you or people like you will be on the front lines as very likely members of whatever elite tries to respond that challenge. So just a couple thoughts about the kind of elite I'm hoping it will be. If and when your time in that put it in historic happens. First of all, I hope you will approach it with empathy. And empathy does not mean sympathy. Sympathy is what you feel for a victim or someone of the lesser station. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it is not associated for the sort of mutual respect to the personhood of others, that a genuinely free society, I think, requires. And, that multiple, at least 2 or 3, like it's always on about my Purdue commencements. And I remember saying the same sort of thing at a previous talk, something that you did here. And I urged young people be careful, because more than any time society is accepting, is inviting you, tempting you, almost pranking the self-sacred with people like them, very likely not just go to school with them, simply like to work with them later and to live with it, and then marry somebody like that, lazy. That we spiritualize, still this is not to do, is just getting more and more to be the case. That people are clustering together, which always fosters dissonance, disagreements, lack understanding. I used to say I didn't feel good about giving numbers. Well, I know one thing, popular algorithms. But somebody here said that Professor Paul Kidd was here not too long. Well, I stumbled over that fact that Yale, for many years, I think maybe it's stopped now, for many years, it was, of course, co-taught by Professor Paul Kennedy and Professor John Gass, we were scholars. And as a camp still wanted up, given the opportunity, this was student, of course, to grand strategy. Student, of course, would take an exam of some kind, do a project which the University of Birmingham spend a good part of the summer traveling on soaring travel to exotic lands they had never been before, to see they would never have met before, namely in the United States. And I thought that was just great, because he got at the problem that's been raised. So I told Purdue graduates, I said, look, resist this invitation to cluster up just with people just like him. Do something. Join softball league on the other side of town. Attend the church Sunday girls. Something that you'll be a better person. You'll be a better leader. And so anyway, I really liked what they were doing in that course. They said, Professor Vieta said, we're looking to break down the isolation and the focus of which too many of our students reside. So I leave him with similar advice. And the other way in which I hope you'll lead, Wolf, in talking about elites, said elites must be exemplars. Another way in which I hope you'll be an exemplar, and I made mention earlier, whatever new arrangements might be made this subject, whatever new structures, institutions, political parties, laws, rules in the book, humidity, work with others to keep trying. I hope they will still put primacy on the word personal and political. You know, anyone who is dissatisfied in the American president, I completely understand, and to a large extent, probably agree. That does not imply that we should be equally dissatisfied or contemptuous of the American past. And there's still a core of the American experience, a respect for the individual person, for the rights of each person, no matter their station, which I hope will not be lost in whatever changes may be coming. But ultimately, it's yours to determine. You know, I haven't been back here very often. When I am, I immediately remind people that it's a reminder this is not my presence, not supposed to be. The change is a bit environmental, and probably continue to be. I don't have anything to say about it. It won't be my America either. But I do express to you the hope that whatever our new collective identity is, whatever different society, you have a hand, hope you will take a hand in shaping. It'll be a peaceful and prosperous, and especially free. Thank you for this invitation. That's for the interrogation. Let me go home. It's not about anything except for football.
Yes, I went to that.
Here, man, over. I just you just raise your hands if y'all have any students and we can go further.
Tell me your negatives below. I can care what happened to there.
Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, the audience, yeah.
I guess my question, about possible future challenges, kind of random challenge thing I speak, but something that I think is perhaps interesting. What are your opinions kind of on AI, or how do you think that might
Yeah, well, I'm sure at least everybody here under 30 understands AI better than I do, or any of the rest of us here. I'm as unclear as even the reason I don't feel sheepish about second people. I know a lot of this is that people who and I've had a chance to ask if anyone was vetted for wisdom today, and they do a couple things. First, I've asked Tom that I knew, I had a chance to talk, a little bit, and I didn't talk to a guy with AI. And I said, for the young piece, that's unsettling about what this technology already did. And they both said I can do it faster than they expect. Said I can swallow that. When I hear you say you don't know how it's doing, that really sets me off bad. Is that right? Both of them said, yeah, look at my house different. So if they don't know that, well, it's got to me, that's the reason for some real caution. Told me, do know what happens. I've read all the books about the singularity and so forth. This is where the three humans, of course, mutated one mutation at a time for eons. This thing's mutating at exponential rates. It learns how to code for itself, and there's things like this. And so, and that's where some people, they get old. Look at us like ants. I think, of course, people believe that we'll be able to maintain self-employment, straight productivity. There's just hope that's chased. You're in trouble about the implications and fixing all of it, and my notes are things like a Jewish man, like it's the older towards the multiplier. And on one level in person in a group somewhere with the blame and grip on AI could reap unbelievable language. In this, what do you call it? So, I guess my needles been it's a little bit for now, based upon the caution kind. Also, of course, so people say, setups. Then they're right. I've given this talk many, many times. Every time a new revolution in technology comes along, people feel the earth am held jobs with this guy and 10 jobs with this guy, and it does, but it's always given rise to more productivity, more prosperity, more new opportunities that, and so I don't know if that's the case this time. If we have, but I think that when even the people who was most excited and most for knowledge, when both those people I talked about, I said, how many people in this little, are they doing work on level, the front edge of where you guys are? And they go to their crimes, maybe 100 people. Put all that together, I didn't feel too guilty thinking maybe we should approach things pretty carefully.
Hi, I'm Noah, and I'm actually not from the US. So I actually from Germany initially when I went to school in the UK. So I sort of experienced like 4 pretty big economies and similar in character to the US. And so that's my question more on the international level, because undeniably what the US does is quite important in shaping European policy, what was in Africa in the future, in India, etc. So I was just wondering how, the problem in the US and in all the major economies in Europe, like Germany, Italy, France, UK, whatever, how that give rise to, for example, China or Russia, how does that provide them an opportunity to subvert the principles of freedom which these nations espouse? And then on that, is there perhaps an international solution that could be found on debt? Because, all of these economies are hugely, hugely in debt. And, the compound interest that's going to accrue will be detrimental to all of them. So is there perhaps something we can do on an international scale? Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. I'll take taking the first question first. Were I one of the autocrats, people leading China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, I'd be looking at my child. This is a time of, they must see it as an enormous opportunity. I just hold none of them decides to seize their corner of the opportunity, because that'll only evolve the next one and the next. We were, when for a long, long time, the strategic posture of the United States was to be able to deter, which man ever kept to be able, easy theory, to win 2.5 conflicts. And a conflict like Iraq qualified as by half. And they were thinking, people ain't over in Europe, something over in Asia, and somewhere, somewhere else. Well, and nowhere near the capability to do that. And so I think it's this is something you read about it, maybe, but now it's one of enormous peril. Just look, even though it seems unthinkable, but so did World War I for the exploded, changed, of course, very thin since. So, I really think I've been looking again something I resist believing, except that the evidence is just too strong to dismiss it. I just took another look back toward the Professor Samuel Huntington, who was a very eminent scholar at Harvard, passed away, I think, in the early 2000s. And he said in one of his best, most of the read books, Clash of Civilizations, and said that today competition among nations, the potential conflict among nations, it's not ideologically good, and it's not, democratic capitalism versus narcissism. Civilization, often religion at the core. And he said, you got to start looking at the world that way. He said one other thing that's I think it's relevant to your question. He said that the U.S. really should pitch its tent, so to say, with you, that can and basically live into that the universalist idea, as appealing as it is, I was there the night that Bush 23 gave a very stirring speech about freedoms in every human heart. Just because someone is growing up in a land without it doesn't mean they yearn for it. This was, I think it is, there are other cultures that simply have different values now are likely to continue to. They prioritize other things, or the faithfulness to a religious chapter. And they understandably resent somebody else saying, our values are universal. You should adopt. So that's very sober, I think about it when I pulled it off the shelf and looked at in light of the last just few years, recent days, hard not to see some value. And then if that's the debts, yeah, I mean, it is a world like problems in lots of countries. It's not unreserved currency that most world just, that's what's been protected. Well, it protected, the pound protected the UK till it didn't. All right? And in Spain before that and so forth. So that's why I think it is both eyes. It's not just the economic about polar expansion. If they hold a treasury auction and nobody comes, people have not taken on board what that would mean. And it won't just be economic. When people are told, people have been told was turned by the proponents of the entitlement wars, the noble ones. It's your money. No, you're just getting back the money you put in. It's not the kids. Voluntarily. I promise you, 95% of Social Security and Medicare recipients don't. They don't know it's people working today who are paying to them. When somebody is forced to say they can't do it, we have to cut those benefits somehow. You should start with people who don't need it. If that money is on, that would solve it in war. Pass the line. There'll be a sense of social betrayal. I think makes today's polarization, today's, disregard to the elites seems small. And then finally, as some of their top military leaders, is it Mattis or somebody, said years ago, he was asking the Congressional Committee, what's the number one threat? It's the number one threat to national security in the United States. He said, our debt. We will soon be paying more just the interest on the debt that we pay for all our defense establishment. At a time when we just talked about whether the threats are going. Sorry for a long answer, but yes, two very good questions. Thank you, sir. Wheels. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Used to be shows where, the guy walk around and genius.
Sorry, that fall. So, Stephen, first things first, you have a great last name. I'm also the Daniels.
Hey, look. I promise you we're not related around. But
I'm curious, you mentioned it a couple of times about books that you found personally meaningful. Is there a book that you wish you'd read in your early 20s about leadership or about political issues that you think would have been valuable?
Well, thanks, Stephen. There's a lot of things I wish I'd read that were not in the early. Well, I probably wish I had started reading biographies of great leaders a little earlier than I did. I've said many times I have not found too many how-to books that I thought were too persuasive. But where I think one can most readily and most, I think, readably, do that is in the biographies of people who have been faced with enormous challenges, business, military, political, any of these things, and how they dealt with it, what they did well, what they didn't. I starting not too long after the date you asked about, I've read everything I get my hands on about people like Churchill, people like Grant, It's a problem. People like Washington. And now about read this and absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. They probably came by your hand. So honestly, gee, mine is my family was all Syrian. And they made the name up at LSI. That's how I know. Today. You ever meet somebody whose last name looks like first name, that quite likely a Middle Eastern immigration story. Thomas, Johns, George, somebody like that with a last name like that. Anybody else? I'm first year, then my son not afterward.
That's so deep. Oh,
Troy, man.
Okay, so I haven't lived that long, so I'm very pessimistic, and I've been increasingly pessimistic. Okay, so here's a question to myself, to you, and to all that can see this. Okay, today I don't think there's a thing that will unite American nation, because America is not founded in blood or land, right? So American, this idea, America is founded upon an idea. And this idea that it is the Declaration of Independence and also the Constitution, right? And the more contemporary, more popular, more cliche version would be American Dream. Well, then so today America is so divided. I just don't see there is a common ground between the left and the right. They would have consensus. There is one thing that can unite us. There's one thing we agree upon. And so there's no thing to unite America, and America, as I know, just ceases to exist. So maybe that is a common word.
Well, I wish I could disagree. First, you mind if I tell them about it? Because I've actually known Abby at the briefly before. She's a postdoc here now. She grew up to the age of what in mainland China?
Okay, so I was born in the 80s, and I did in China for 33 years.
33 years, yeah.
And I lived in America for 30 years.
In a very rural upbringing, and it's a rather magical story. Well, I can't disagree. If it's absolutely true, and to the beginning, we were that one nation, really. There wasn't bound up by a common ethnicity. Same religion, it was the idea, and it did depend on assimilation of different peoples as they changed. That has broken down, and there are people who believe very sincerely that's good, buddy. That there's a fundamental flaw and that there have been. But our world is America is, of course, finding out where that's not true. How might it encompass exactly what those people I was talking to you about were saying? It'll come because of some cataclysmic event. Dictators understand this, by the way. It's one thing that worries me, but if you've got problems, and look, President Xi's got problems too. That has apparently very high approval ratings. Why? Took the country to war. Breaks people mature. It talked about being brainless. Fighting like cats and dogs when at least still morality. They're like this, that's not the way one does. Her or his country. Didn't come together. But it can't happen that way. He would like to that we could reach into a sense of pride, commonality in the American and freedoms that we enjoy. You did say something else important, which was that you mentioned one way or another, child or another, economic success. So that slowed down, at least so badly people, and people have come to question. So that's been the unifier. In fact, we're still moving across these very broad swaths of society. That needs to occur. That's what Arne Wolf was talking about. But that's really what I guess I came to slow here as much as anything is that it may well be that we're headed for some major, as I said, with gate of history. And I just hope we move through it, or those who need us through it, do so with values, some of the values, and God was to say, this thing will happen. Yes.
So you mentioned in your talk as few speakers, few thinkers who thought a lot about civilizational decline, like Toynbee, Dalio, and this is a concern that's animating a lot of people, especially on the right. So given that, is the task of the hero generation, a generation that leads the country to civilization through a period of crisis, for us, is that a task to attempt to avert that? Or is it a task to accept the fact that decline is inevitable, as Toynbee Spengler would say, and try to manage it the best that we can?
Could be. Great question. Not the first time it's been asked. I can remember in the 70s when the nation was in a bad patch. Henry Kissinger and others talking as though this was the right force to try to manage the race decline. Turned out to be at least premature because the country was roaring back economically in terms of international effectiveness and prestige and all the rest. I think that evidence has gathered that the structures, political parties, just to take cognizance, right, got to be reshaped in some way. Probably not very far from that, but how it wasn't you. Somebody asked me, Max asked me about the House theory candidacy, and the people say, "Well, it never works." It just wrote, and that's been true. Why? The two political parties we've had, and thank goodness we've maintained the structure of two, not multiple parties, as so much of Europe has. Not one, as Stalin said to Churchill, said, "What is it? This two parties, one is much better." Yeah. But the reason that third parties never finally got very far was that the two parties, as we've known them, were always competing for the. In fact, there was a time when there was great overlap. Somebody was reminding something that not that long ago, in the 50s, 60s, some places like that, the biggest complaint in public polling about the parties was it's not a dime's worth of difference between them. They were reasonably suddenly flat overlap. There were Democrats who were to be called in today's parliaments very conservative. There were Republicans who would be liberal. Now, of course, both for reasons that I think are pretty obvious politically, are competing to the edges of the heart, each other. And so there's this enormous so-called exhausted center, which bigger than it's ever been. It just doesn't want anything to do with either one. I can't really understand. And so it's really not, it's not hard at all to see how Pearson could be correct. We just have another fracture. Somebody goes the way of the Whigs. Somebody goes the way of the Federalists. I don't know what the resulting structure looks like. Economically, probably the same thing. The system has certainly become incredibly encrusted with special interests that are protecting their own monopolistic position, whether it's big businesses lethally support all kinds of regulation to make it hard for small business to deal with, or a teachers union that keeps us trapped in a helplessly failing in too many places. Public choices, all of these things. And this is where Olson, his theory comes in. When you get to that point, you're that sclerotic, you're that calcified. The only thing that changes that is something that cracks it and maybe sweeps away a bunch of them. And then after a very, very difficult period, green shoots will come up. Anything? Cool. Sorry. Good.
So I've been spending a lot of time this semester reading a lot of European conservative thinkers from the late 18th, early 19th century, people who are responding to the French Revolution. And thinking in that context of people who are dealing with the society in the process of revolution, or once a revolution has essentially been completed, or thinkers who are conservative, and I mean that in kind of broad as possible sense, not the kind of modern American, necessarily partisan political sense, trying to conserve, maintain, preserve the institutions they've inherited, the ways of life they've inherited. And that's kind of got me thinking, given your presentation of this kind of crisis or revolution in a sense, whether it's political or not, matters, that we seem to be confronting. That's something that's deeply disorienting, I think, to a lot of people, those of conservative disposition, I think, generally. And I wonder how you think about how all of us generally, particularly those of us who have broadly conservative disposition, respond to that. I think this is sort of similar to Koa's question that you just asked, just saying, you know, should we try to kind of hang on to these institutions as long as they can and just kind of, you know, fixing the sprinklers and the panic, as it were, moving around the deck chairs, or should we be, you know, aggressively looking for something to kind of, when does that shift happen? How should we think about that, especially regarding kind of political institutions, forms of American life, the ways of American life that we see as so animal to how our identity and how we're organizing ourselves sets us all.
I think you're probably more learned about various thinkers than I am. Burke comes to mind. He's probably the best knowledge. Is associated with the copies. He saw what the French Revolution was, what it was going to lead to, and is described as a conservative thinker. Burke never said freeze things in place. What we have is the best of all possible worlds. He was in favor of evolutionary change and tried to preserve the value within values of traditional institutions, but adapt them to change. I think it's a failure of to call conservatism today, or it's a failure of the consensus that Pearson talked about, you know, that did span the people from both parties, that we have made kind of changes that we need to do. I certainly, in terms of the catastrophe we've built for ourselves in terms of death, it's a you have not your future without follow those old structures that served well. You know, we do have to take care of those people. That's a very conservative idea, actually. In long-term turnovers. He was fighting good, therefore, with confidence in the system itself, you know, but we've not set ourselves up to do that very much. So, always, I think, the goal should be to do that until it's no longer possible, because something has so fundamentally changed that you have to pick up a broken china and glue it back together with a brand new thing. But I think you're asking all great questions, and I just hope you get a chance to answer to the first thing on the same doing that. That's we miss you.
Oh, yeah. I guess one of the suggestions that I've heard for unifying the population, when he kind of suggested it, is service. And a lot of people speculate that the reason for the post-war boom in most countries is sharing the experience of service. So do you see service, whether it be like military, political, or otherwise, being a potential unifier?
Yeah, it's not so-called national service. Yeah, in concept, yes. Practically, most difficult. You know, the draft did serve that purpose, and it did mix together. It wasn't military services were a military power. So, in what we had 7 million people under arms in the under arms World War II. Even in the 60s, we had 3 people. Something today it's 1, 2, but we just don't need as many people. And when Ben's AI gets here, I don't think we need anybody. So I hope somebody still got their hand on the bot drum, you know. And so, so people have made, it's absolutely a big case that if you can create some sort of experience like that for people in their younger years, it will be eye-opening and so forth. Just nobody should come up with a way that you can absorb that many people. Now, if the birth rate keeps falling the way it is, you know, it's another huge problem we're building for ourselves. We're not making enough, you know, young people, which is going to exacerbate all kinds of problems. From the debt pyramid, seems to look like this, starts to look like this. You made a lot of us, or high credit, which is then hitting into a big shakeout, places not like this one. So maybe somebody can fashion something. Yeah, in theory, that would be really a very good thing. But until we come up with some practical way to do it, so you're just going to have to, like I said, join that softball league just to make sure that everybody you know, leave good Princeton.
Thank you for coming and speaking with us today. My name is Kaylee. I'm actually from Valparaiso, Indiana. So.
From Hobart.
Oh, really? Oh, cool. Yeah. So I'm definitely feeling the Indiana vibes in here. So my question, I absolutely love that you addressed community and empathy specifically, because I think that is all tied in with the lack of or the idea that a third party would arise. So I kind of wrote some things down. So let me just read my little spiel here that I have. So yeah, I completely agree that moderates are feeling left behind because of the extreme polarization of the two parties. And I feel like this leaves the opportunity for a third party to arise. And I kind of see this party would be made up of almost like moderate independents, where essentially they've handpicked their issues. So maybe they draw issues from both the right and the left. And of course, this would mean that they can't automatically go and they have to hand select their candidates. And I feel like this would boost community because they would feel like they hand selected their candidates, and as a result, they feel more connected as a community. What do you think about that?
I do think the opening is there. I think some mentioned daily before about that. I think the age of the moment we're in. I didn't even mention, I talked about the fact that parties that used to overlap or at least compete close to the center have now, become captive to their respective extremes, all that. I didn't even mention we're dealing with two octogenarian candidates in Mountain changes. We've never seen that either. And so there's all sorts of people with a concern about the action played a part. So the dissatisfaction that they have with the policies of people. So now there's this on the other. I can conjure a situation, and with that ahistorical non-interpret, where some over the right ticket succeeds. But then where are you? I mean, that's a start. I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but come on. They threw in France. No, correct you. I don't think I would be correct. He didn't just run as he had a new party, really. Only 2, 3, 4 months before election, there was a lot more sense of what else, but they don't have the heated campaign. But he didn't run as a single candidate. He recruited candidates in the legislative branch, and they won a lot of seats. So he's in a position to do something. He didn't say do it like did it. I have not seen anybody do that. Now, if the people who are talking about third candidacy had done that, somehow found a way to, I think there'd be an opportunity there to. But if we'd be better off maybe with someone of the kind speculative. With the, Teddy Roosevelt's famous bully pulpit. You guys know, by the way, that bully is an adjective. I think this something was great. He said it's bully, and that's a bully game. So you are a bully when you use it. Historical digression. Someone with access to that, in particularly, we're way too, I think, centered on the White House, the executive branch, but that probably more than is how that is where we are. And somebody with that might begin to speak effectively with polarization, might begin to propose things that have enough public appeal that even the members of Congress, as they're currently constituted, I feel some growth like that. That's what I don't think anybody's quite figured out. Movie line, everybody my age remembers movie opportunity to win the election, and Robert Redford says to the consultant, what do we do now? That's the last money in. And you think, you don't understand that message. But I do think that there's an opening there that will only be the first step toward being better overall. The one, okay, how about should we make this the last one? Where's Pross? Last random question? No, I got this. I just want to know. Oh, okay, there.
That is so much pressure. Oh my God.
Well, we could probably crash somebody for another.
It's really good. My question relates to something that you said towards the end of your talk about how this isn't during America. And you mentioned how we got some older candidates running for president right now and what they're going to be asking. You know what? Digression. You know what? My question is, how would you view political participation for people you recognize that this isn't very success, both in regards to elected positions and also just voting engagement as a whole?
Yeah. Thank you. Name, rank, and serial number you are?
Don't look at my serial number, but
Steve, thank you. What I meant to say was, when that day gets here, 2 years, that won't be what I meant to say. It won't be mine. I know it'll look different if this all happens, and it won't be my males influence to this is still my America. We declaim this country. I regret that so many people, at least, in fact, not to. The reason we don't have, we have lost the unity I'll be asked about is that many people decided they don't buy it. They just don't buy it. And you're only held together by an idea. Whatever our backgrounds, we have common commitment to order, liberty, freedom, rule of law, and so forth. And a meaningful percentage of people that I don't like it. It's not right. Let's do it a different way. And you don't have anything. There's no glue. Cheating them. If you're here, you clearly think about these things, care about these things. What I was trying to say was that, the answers that you and folks that you might associate with, lead in some way, and would produce might be different than mine, and they'll have to be, because the world's going to be so different. Maybe unfortunately different back then and so forth. But at least until AI turns us all into ants, say, I hope that those who shape the middleware will still believe there's dignity and worth to every single person, and trust and believe that people have a right to make their own decisions, help them when they absolutely need it, but trust them and help them and empower them to make the decisions. I said in the book, I said, we have to look at each other as creatures of dignity, not objects of therapy. And, I just think that that is a system, that is a set of values consistent with a belief in the good of everyone. And that you can set up your economy, you can set up your political parties, you can have the rules in the political world, very, very different, and still preserve and protect that. So I cut. Master out people take. So good. Thank you all.